So, for anyone who hasn't met me before, I'm Diana Sykes and I'm the director of Fife Contemporary. And this afternoon, we're very pleased to welcome the artist Abz Mills, who is going to have an in-conversation session with me as part of Black History Month. Last year, we had an event for Black History Month, and one of the speakers was Mezi Wura, who had organised the Black Lives Matter mural trail across Scotland. And we were really interested to see that one of the artists involved in the trail was in fact Abz, who is based here in Fife in Kirkcaldy. So we were delighted to make contact with her and to ask her to come along today and talk about her own practice. And from someone who created an extremely large mural for the trail, her day-to-day practice as an artist is working on a miniature scale as a tattoo artist. And Abz, I think you've probably not had the most kind of conventional path to your practice as an artist. So I wondered if, first of all, you could maybe say something about how you came to work as an artist and kind of what the influences have been on you doing that.
Well, I know I've always been on art my whole life. I've always been attracted to art and drawing and creating something out of nothing. It was something that just always spoke to me as a child. I was able to like make sense of things that were going on in my life through like drawing and things. So the moment that I realised after watching the TV, because that's what I did as a child in the 90s, we watched cartoons pretty much all day, especially on a Saturday. When I realised that cartoons were basically moving drawings, that's when I kind of made up my mind I wanted to be a cartoonist when I grew up. So a lot of my influences are animation based, Disney and The Simpsons and Cartoon Network and things like that. A lot of them were really easy to draw for me. And I would get like the Simpsons comics and the Cartoon Network comics and stuff as well. So I'd get them if I was ever getting a treat at the shop and sit and drew what I saw and things like that. So a lot of my influences come from that, because I don't know if it reminds me of a happier time. That's where a lot of my kind of original style comes from. Knowing that I wanted to be a cartoonist, went through to, after school, I went in to do graphic design at college at Adam Smith. As a kind of stepping stone to then go into animation. By the time I got to college though, all the animation stuff was very technical and it's all 3D animated, so more of the kind of Pixar stuff that like you don't see many
very digital movies
now. Yeah. So it kind of totally put me off, and I felt like I'd wasted a bunch of my time by like only drawing cartoons. I've always loved it. It brings me a lot of peace, but I knew that even though I was doing a hobby, it was then going to like influence my career, because I knew it'd be something artistic I would go into. Like everything that I chose in like school was directed towards that. But I did enjoy my graphic design course. I learned a lot of different techniques and different things to do like on the computer. It is very expensive though, like Photoshop and all the other programs that go along with that. Like, and we just had like a family computer at the time. I think it was mid 2000s, so it wasn't like the kids nowadays where everybody has a laptop and an iPad and stuff. It was very basic. So I did what I could on pad and paper and pens and felt tip pens, markers, and pencils as well. And then I would transfer that to the computer when I got to college. To then like keep up with everybody else that was on Macs and things like that.
Gosh.
But I was very inspired by like album artwork. I listened to a lot of kind of pop punk and what's called like emo music. So a lot of album artwork for that time. It's quite dark, and it was quite not sinister, but it was kind of, there was something quite beautiful about the style of the art that I liked on all these different album covers. So as I was kind of growing up, like my style was growing up as well. It was getting a bit more, it was maturing, I guess, over time, as opposed to like the bright poppy kind of stuff that I'd grown up with. It was more on the kind of I guess you could say, like depressive kind of style, because I was going through a lot of things.
Very emo as well, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, everybody has emotions. And I think art has always been great for me with dealing with those emotions. So if I was able to channel that into something productive, then I was happy. But one of my favorite influences from that kind of time that I was really looking into the actual art, the artist behind the art, was Alex Pardee. He does a lot of I would say really abstract kind of characters. So it's almost a mixture of fun and like cartoony and happy kind of stuff, but the paint will be dripping and the edges will be sharp and edgy and things like that. So it's really a bit of a melt for the eyes, but that always influenced me, because it was a mixture of all the stuff that I liked. And I got into a lot of the graffiti, but because I was able to channel and really do research on what artists I liked and what artists I wanted to influence my style going forward in the course, I was really able to do some like really good research and make sketchbooks that had all these references and thumbnails and stuff in it. So I am glad I did the course, because I still do a lot with what I've learned back then, even in the work that I do now. So I did that for, I would say, a year and a half. I did the full NC, and then I went into the second year HNC, and it was too much. There was too much for my little brain to keep up with. It was very writing based, and I was struggling with like work and travel, and there was all sorts of personal stuff going on. So I just followed my gut and quit.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, like you said, it's not the most conventional way that somebody goes through education, but it worked for me at the time. And I guess sometimes you have to strip everything away to get a really clear think about what you actually want and what path you want to go on. So
it's a big decision as well to take, you know, when you've committed to something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a brave decision, I think, to actually stop something as much as it is to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't a popular thing to do in my house, but I knew that it was right. It felt right. And like people knew that I wasn't going to stop being creative. They're a bit disappointed that I left, but you do have to follow your heart as well, especially as an artist, because you can't create if you're like backed into a corner or frustrated or any of that. So I was about 18 at this point, so you can guess that I got up to a bunch of stuff that many artists have gotten up to. So I was obviously having a drink, and I was 18, so I was legally allowed to get tattoos. So the money that I did make from McDonald's, which was my first job, and I was there for 3 years, so I was able to stick through that 3 years, the longest commitment at the time. So yeah, I would spend my money on tattoos and art books and movies and like clothes and stuff, really kind of trying to find myself and expression and just have a bit of fun, I think.
And how did you choose tattoos for yourself at that time? Did you have kind of ideas about what kinds of designs were kind of appropriate to your identity, or?
Not 100%. I knew that I wanted tattoos, and I had drawn up a few for myself. But over time, I think my style changed, and I think my idea of what a tattoo could be had changed as well.
Yeah.
So I was able to design things for myself as well as other people. And through doing that, my friends would be like, well, why don't you get into tattooing yourself? So I just kind of, something just like clicked, light bulb moment in my mind, and I was like, well, yeah, why not? Like, it's very unconventional, and I've never been conventional. Like, I wasn't supposed to go down the conventional route, so why not? So it just made sense to me at that point. I knew that it was it's a lifetime commitment, tattooing. I think it's not really something you can dabble with and like do it really seriously, like take it seriously. So I knew I wanted to go about it as right of a way I could for the stage of my life that I was in. But that was the decision I made. So I committed to that idea. Every time I got a tattoo, I would ask the artist loads of questions and ask for feedback on my portfolio. Not like I would bring a big portfolio with me, but I'd always have like a sketchbook with me, because I always had like either an art journal or just a sketchbook with me. And I would travel back and forth from Fife to Edinburgh and like to Glasgow to get tattooed. So on the bus, get the bus everywhere. Not so much trains at that point, but that's another thing. So yeah, I'd always be sketching and stuff. So I asked for some feedback, and they were like, "You should definitely pursue this because you can draw better than some of the artists that are out here today." So I was just, oh, so went for it because that was the first professional feedback that I'd gotten. So I knew that I would.
How did you manage to get into it? How did you know to ask to be able to work with somebody in their studio? How did that work as an apprenticeship?
Well, the proper way of doing it is you get your portfolio and you ask around like different studios for like feedback and if they have any space or if they need someone to just like clean up or get them coffee or things like that. But there wasn't as many tattoo shops as there are now as there was back then. So most places said we don't actually have space for you, but like keep it up and good luck and all that stuff. A friend of mine at the time was an apprentice somewhere. She had said herself that she wasn't really taking it seriously, but it was something to do and it was kind of the cool thing to do. So I was just like, I actually want to do this for art. I want to create more art and do that kind of thing. So she basically showed me how to put together a machine, which is quite technical. So she brought her stuff home, showed me, put it together. I didn't like attempt to do anything on that person then and there, but it didn't take me too long. I got my own stuff off the internet, which you're not supposed to do, but me being a little rebel, I obviously went for it. So don't try it at home, kids. If you're art, please go and get an apprenticeship to do it safely. But because I was so serious and I had my mind set on it and I had a big bunch of nerdy notes that I'd gotten from all sorts of interviews from artists on how to set up a machine, all the different things you need to do and all the safety precautions and all things like that. So I felt like I was prepared and I was going to take it seriously as best I could while doing it the wrong way. And I don't tell that story often because I don't want people to follow in that footsteps kind of thing. So, but I tattooed a few things on myself after using pigskin, which I got for, I think it was like 48 pence or something from Morrison's, right? So I think they cut up the skin of the pig. And I think people use it for like pork scratchings, like if you were to actually use it. And they say you go to the butchers and you give it to you. You don't actually get given a pig to then do it yourself. It's a bit brutal, but so I started on that. It smells awful, so brace yourself. You are getting into tattooing and that's the way you want to do it. So ideally in an apprenticeship, the mentor will give that to the apprentice in the studio, so everything's cleaned up and stuff afterwards. But me getting into it myself, bought it myself, set up all the machines, got all my medical equipment or my cleaning stuff ready, and sat in the conservatory at my mum's house. And she comes home, smells that awful like dead animal smell, I guess you could say. She's like, "What are you doing?" And so in a way she was like pleased that I was taking the initiative and just going for it and practicing it the safe way. But I had to kind of get rid of that bit of pigskin as soon as possible because it stunk. And from there you can use as well fake skin, which you can get online. And I think that is better now, but it's more, it looks and feels more like a rubber or linoleum tile.
Right.
So it's not really a great replica for actual skin, but you can actually inject the ink through the needle onto the thing. So it's good for practicing like your lines, your depth, and like your speed and like the kind of weight of the machine and stuff like that as well. So I did a few of them. At first only really with like black ink, just to kind of get my lines down and my shading and things like that. Practiced a couple on myself, and then a really good friend of mine offered me to do it on her. So went from there. Because I knew that I wasn't going to tattoo until like my lines were nice and straight. Because even if moving forward or in a few years' time they needed like touched up or gone over, at least the initial drawings would be good, and like the tattoo would at least be attempted well, and it wouldn't be like scarred or blown out or anything like that. So taking that step forward, she was obviously pleased with them as best as she could be, because it was a kind of bond. It's a bonding experience getting tattooed as well. So, but she was my best friend at the time, so she posted it on Facebook, which I wasn't going to do because I was going to try and keep it nice and, you know, regulated and things like that. But then word started to spread within our little like friend group, and then more and more people were like offering up their skin to me, and it just kind of blew up after that. It was about 6 months of that. After a while, I was going to people's houses and doing it. All very underground. Can't believe I'm saying all this, but eventually, a piercer who is still good friends with me, actually, he was working at a studio in Dunfermline. He'd said he'd seen my work and he was impressed considering how long that I'd been doing it, and that they need another, like a flash artist, like a walk-in person. So somebody who can just take people that want tattooed then and there. It's usually something small, and it'll be a good experience for you. So yeah, I was very happy to at least go in for like a trial day or something. I went in and put together my machines and set up like I had been doing, but it was in a real shop, and I couldn't believe my luck. So it's just right place, right time. During that time, whilst I was tattooing friends and friends of friends and stuff like that, I was in an art and design portfolio course, because I knew going into the career I wanted to make sure that my stuff was like up to a certain standard. Like I didn't want to go into it in a cocky way. I didn't want to go in thinking that I can draw everything, I can tattoo everything, like I'm the best, because that's not the case. I still don't think that. There's always room for improvement, I think. So I was about to start that would have been my third year at doing I would have been doing my HND at Abz Mills again. Went back to the class, but art and design portfolio as a kind of step into uni. During that time, I applied to uni and they said no, so I burst into tears. But then my mum reminded me, look, you're not on the conventional path. That's not for you, and what's for you won't go by you. So, and it was supposed to happen that way. So,
absolutely.
And then 10 years later, I'm still tattooing and I still love it.
Yeah. And so, in terms of your style, in terms of the tattoos that you've developed over time, because obviously, from what you're saying, as with any artist, you know, you're developing, hopefully, all the time. And are there particular kind of things that people might associate with a tattoo that has been made by you rather than designed by someone else?
Yes, because a lot of my style is influenced by cartoons and illustrative kind of things. It's usually a lot of my tattoos are like bold lines and bright colours and like dark shades and stuff, something that really is bright and like pops off the skin. I have a few photos if you would like to see.
Yeah, that would be good. Give me an idea.
Yeah. It changes over time and it changes every day, because people want different things. So I try my best to make each tattoo unique for the person. But ultimately, a lot of people have said that you can tell that it's my work, even though I think it's like maybe mimicking another person's style or another like artist style, but it always, you know, it always falls back to this is me, this is what I do. Just making sure I've selected all of them. Not all of them, but like a good selection for people to see.
To get a flavour of what's involved. And you were talking about also the oh right, let's have a look.
So this is it's called a half sleeve. So from the elbow down or the elbow up, obviously not a full sleeve. Well, a full sleeve would be like from wrist to shoulder, and sometimes the chest or onto the shoulder at the back. So this again is very much my style. It's a mashup of different creative influences. We've got like bright pop art kind of style mixed with like really dark, deep black and greys, almost like realism, but all like illustrative kind of thing. There was definitely a kind of like dreamscape kind of theme behind this one, but I couldn't tell you. It was a very long time. Well, it was 2015, 2016, this one, I would say.
Right, right.
This was one that I did last week.
Ah, gosh, Japanese.
Yeah,
Boy.
always popular in the tattoo industry. Hard to master, but I find it a lot of fun, really, because again, it mimics a lot of stuff that I enjoy about tattooing, the bold, the dark colours, the bright colours, the bold lines, and like the rich black and white. And I do like things that have a certain flow to the body. That's what's different. Working on a human to working on a bit of paper, because skin's obviously not flat, and it moves with the person. So
yeah, it's a three-dimensional canvas, and as you say, it's not just three-dimensional, but it actually stretches and changes as people do kind of daily tasks or whatever, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely something to consider when you're designing something for your body. You've got to think of that, you know. This is actually a heeled piece. This was tattooed in Cardiff on one of my at one of my conventions. So I go down to conventions sometimes. I've not done one up here in Scotland, but I've done a few up and down the country. So I'd see the previous year from this, I'd seen her. She came up to the booth and wanted one of my designs, and she liked this little kind of funky teddy bear. And then the following year she was there again, so she let me get a healed picture of it. So that's all the colours settled into the skin. So that's a bold that I do feel. Very large octopus kind of colours, again unconventional colours. This was drawn on the skin. So
incredibly intricate.
Yeah, good fun though. So some people will they'll trust you enough to draw on the skin, and that way they don't exactly see what they're getting before they go for it, but that way
they have like
freedom and trust.
Yeah.
A rough idea.
How long would it take to execute a piece of that scale?
So this was from like just below the hip to like middle thigh. I believe this took about, I want to say about 4 hours, I think.
Wow.
I've been told I'm quite fast, so I don't know how long this would have taken for somebody else. My boss, the person I work with, she often comments on how I'll get something done, and she'd be like, that would have taken me like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
4 hours doesn't seem actually that long. Wow.
On the other hand, I do like doing realistic stuff, especially like colour realism. It doesn't get asked for a lot because I don't think there's many examples out there, in like where we are anyway. So if someone were to give me the opportunity, I would love to do more like colour realism stuff. But he's chuffed to bits with this, and this was actually his first tattoo, and he did very, very well.
God, so he went for it. He did.
Yes. So this is on a forearm, so from just below the elbow stitch to the wrist.
And you've worked in different places. You mentioned Dunfermline, you've been to Glasgow, as well as now working in Kirkcaldy. Have you found that the clients in these different places, these different towns, is there a kind of different style that certain people like in different places, or are the kind of range of clients the same wherever?
It does just vary, like person to person, but I did notice a big shift when I moved from Dunfermline through to Glasgow. I got offered a job in a Glasgow studio. They were not long starting out, and they'd seen my stuff online, so they liked it, so they gave me a job. So me being me, taking the opportunity that presents itself to me, packed up my stuff and then moved to Glasgow. And I noticed a lot of the clients were working in the city. I've got a bit more like out there ideas in like design, which was perfect because I like different. Like different is good for me. So it helped me learn a lot in the 4 years that I was there. So this is another half sleeve we've been working on. We finished this not long ago. I think probably like a few weeks or a month ago. But yeah, Disney's always popular with my kind of style because it's like bright and bold, and I think people of all ages and all genders love Disney.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's a unifying trope.
Yeah, and it makes people smile as well, seeing a Disney tattoo. People see it and you recognise it. It's happy. It's nostalgic as well.
Mm.
Oh, this is just a collage. Another thing that people come to me for is cover-ups. Because
So what's a cover-up?
so cover-up would be somebody would come in with a tattoo they're unhappy with,
Right.
and they would want something to go completely over the top of it. Some artists will recommend that you get like laser tattoo removal, like a few sessions of that before getting a tattoo on top of it. But I try my best to see the opportunity and just like use that as a stepping stone to do something really cool and bright and unique. And a lot of people are impatient like me, like they want something and they want to see it like straight away, as opposed to waiting for the laser session, because it does take a few weeks for any movement of the ink to show. So we've got like some people will come in with like an ex's name, like an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, their name.
I imagine that's very common.
Yeah, more common than you would think. So I don't know if getting a name tattooed, like no judgment to anybody that does it, but I don't know if getting a name tattoo like jinxes it or puts like pressure on the relationship or what. But it is like a kind of unspoken thing that if you get the name tattooed, you will probably need it covered up. Not for like family members or like your kids or your parents or things like that, but tattoos last longer than relationships.
Yes, right.
A lot of the time. And sometimes with cover-ups, it could be just something really old and really faded, and they could have just fallen out of love with it. They've maybe got it when they were 18 and they're 56 now. So they're like, it's not me anymore. I was a young boy back then or something.
And do they have an idea, people, when they come to you for a cover-up, as to what they would like to have as a design that will cover it up, or do they rely a lot on you being able to imagine when you're looking at the original how that could be transformed?
I would say kind of 50-50, to be honest. Like a lot of people are very dead set on what they want, or they've had to think about what would cover something. So they're like, yeah, how about this? So I'd say yeah, or if it doesn't work, I would say not quite, but we'll try and make that idea work in the best way. But some people, they come in and say, can you cover this? And I'm like, okay, what would you like to cover it with? And they'll say anything, just pick anything. I want it away. I don't want to see it anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, I still want to give you something that you'd be happy with. So what sort of things do you like? And then they'd be like, well, I don't know what will cover it. I'm like, well, don't worry about that. Like that's the hard bit, and that's up to me. Like, what would you like tattooed if you could have any tattoo in the world? So somebody will say, oh, I like Marvel, like the guy second from the left at the top. He wanted like a Marvel leg. So I was like, right, well, we've got some green here, so we can maybe do the Hulk. We can start with maybe adding the Hulk in here, and then we can expand on this idea, maybe get some background in the future or buildings or something to create it like a massive piece of art. But a lot of times it is something small, and they're not completely up for getting something massive. So get like a butterfly or a flower, because there's ways of using shadow and light to hide the tattoo without it being like a Black Panther or a tribal or something like that. But that's just how I approach cover-ups. Like I like to use the shadowing that's there and look for the negative space in the skin that's actually left, and then turn something really cool out of that. It's an opportunity for me, a challenge that I usually try and...
Sure. But that relationship as well between you and the client is obviously a very, very particular kind of relationship. As you say, I think you mentioned with the friend that you started off with, that there's a kind of bond in terms of how you work with someone. And obviously there's a certain vulnerability when they are giving their skin to you to mark. And I guess as people talk about what they want, does it become, it's quite an intimate kind of experience, I would imagine, is it?
Yeah, you realise that a lot of people are going through really similar things, but we're all unique. So I do like hearing people's stories and the stuff that people have gone through, and and even the story behind particular tattoos, because human beings they're all fascinating. So I love kind of sharing that time with the person and giving them the tattoo that they want and something that they can walk out the door with feeling super confident or just like a bit more perked up. It could like totally brighten their day or their week or their year. And I'll still get messages from people saying, oh, I got stopped in the street today because somebody really likes your work and I've passed them on to you. Is that okay? I'm like, of course. Like,
yeah, word of mouth is the important thing, isn't it?
It's very important, I think. So that's why I always try and do the best work that I can, because if I'm happy with it, like 100%, like I would feel with okay, then, you know, they'll be like over the moon because they don't know what to expect until it's finished, really.
Yeah.
They've seen my work, obviously, but every tattoo is unique for them. So
yeah, trust is a very important part of the transaction, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just in the way that, you know, we think of art as painting somebody's portrait. This is a different but similar kind of relationship.
I think getting the tattoo that suits them and fits on their body uniquely is it's important to me because I want them to be happy. That's my main goal. Yeah, always people pleaser.
Yeah, I know. I think that's an important goal to have.
This is this one here. This chameleon was actually it's their pet. Well, it was their pet. It passed away, I think. So I was like, I had quite a few pet tattoos, but never like a pet chameleon. So I totally had fun with that. And this person, she's tattooed this in Glasgow, and she still is one of the people that comes through and gets work done by me. So it does mean a lot when people choose to travel, even though I've moved back home. It's it means a lot, and it keeps me going. It means that I'm doing something right. So it helps me have faith in myself, because a lot of artists, not just myself, we can get down on our work, and there's a lot of self-doubt and hesitation. But over the past couple of years, it's definitely given me a boost that I needed, because I was just so, like, there's so many really good artists out there, so it can get you down thinking that you're not good enough and you're not like them, but you're not supposed to be like them. You're supposed to be, only you can create the art that you can create. Only you can see the world the way that you can.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So yeah, lots of animals. I do like bright, colourful stuff, and animals.
So these are really strong colours. Do they kind of remain fairly bright over time?
Yeah, if they are tattooed well, they'll stay nice and bright. Colours do settle into the skin over time. So when I'm putting them in, I always make sure to have like a really high contrast, so that when they do settle, that boldness will still remain. But over the years, if people need their tattoos touched up, I always offer that for free, because you can never predict how something's going to heal, because everybody's skin is different, and different people go through different like lifestyle changes and things like that. Like they could go from working inside in an office to working outside all day, so they could get like the tattoo that wasn't really supposed to look a certain way, so they would need it touched up sometimes.
It's worse than a conservation person in a museum has to worry about, isn't it? Excellent.
So you've seen a good few.
We've seen a great selection. Thank you.
I think that's the last one.
That's the last one.
It's
fascinating to see that kind of range of subjects. What I wanted to ask you about, I guess, next was about how you got involved from working on this kind of miniature scale to being part of the Black Lives Mural Trail. And in fact, I mean, you had this really massive mural at the side of the Usher Hall in Edinburgh, as well as some large kind of posters in their kind of poster boxes. So yes, how did that come about?
So when the lockdown happened, because this is when it all took place, 2020, so March, we were told that we're not going to go back to work for the foreseeable future. And all artists, tattoo artists, as far as I'm aware, are self-employed. So it's not like we could go on furlough and get like an 80% cut of what we would have made, kind of thing. So I was a bit down in the dumps, to be honest. I did enjoy the rest, to be honest, because we don't get a lot of time off. Being just, I'm a total workaholic. I love my job, but I forget that it is work, and it does take a toll on me physically. So I was quite, I enjoyed it, having time off for the most part, but then as you kind of get stuck inside, and you get stuck in a loop of being scrolling on your phone and things, like a lot of things do get you down. And I think specifically for everybody, the death of George Floyd in America, not only was it an outrage to people who knows that police brutality is a real thing, and it has been since since slavery was abolished in the States, but also to people that had no clue that this was still a thing, or that the audacity that somebody would kill someone on the street because they had the power to do so. So the outrage between everybody all over the world, and specifically people of colour, because it takes, you know, a person filming an event for people to actually believe it, when people have been basically yelling and screaming from the rooftops, this is real and this is happening, it's not a bias, we're not making these things up, this is it, and this is the evidence to do so. And that's when, even though the Black Lives Matter movement has been around since 2013, that was when people really started to chanting Black Lives Matter, because they do matter. It's a human rights issue, it's not political debate, it's not this side versus that side, it's not black versus white, it's legit, it's human rights. So me being emotionally distraught, I couldn't sleep one night thinking about it, and just, I was hurt. I was like, it was a weird, strange kind of feeling. It was like ancestral pain, because I was feeling the pain for not only myself, because it wasn't to do with me, but in a way that it was. I just felt this urge to pick up my iPad and start sketching. So I'll show you, this is what I started drawing. So I started drawing more, say culturally diverse characters. And I hadn't really been using the iPad for art a lot. At that point, I didn't even have an Apple Pencil. I was using mostly my, just like my finger drawn on the screen. So the first one you'll see is not, I mean, it's not great, but it is what it is. So I was posting these things daily for about, I don't know if it had been about a month by this point, but I posted them up one by one. Eventually they kind of caught the eye of somebody who was kind of recruiting for the Black Lives Matter mural trail, which I didn't know. I didn't know was happening. It would have been nice to know, because I don't know how I would have got in touch with them otherwise. But they recommended that I get in touch with Wezzy, who was organising it. So I did, and she gave me a call. And after going through my stuff and talking about what the brief was and what we wanted to do, yeah, she was happy to have me along for it. So this is the one that I drew in the middle of the night. I don't know if you can read at the top, because it's not supposed to be obvious. At the top it says so much pain, and obviously the hashtag Black Lives Matter and I can't breathe. It's not really supposed to have a gender, this person. It is, people do read it as a boy, like a young boy, a teenage boy, but it could be either. It's not important, and it's not supposed to look like anyone in specific either. So yeah, like I done all this with just like my finger on Procreate, which is what I use for a lot of the digital stuff that I do now. So this was like the first of this series, I guess you could say, because it is a series in my head.
Right, yeah.
And then after a while I did a bit more. Through practice I was able to get different techniques, and I was clicking on different brushes and things like that on the program. different colours and different ideas. This one seems to be one of the most popular ones. People are drawn to this one, I think, because of the hopefulness behind it. Yeah, the burst of white behind their heads, because there's a few that I do that on. It's almost like a halo, but it's like representative of the graffiti culture and the hip hop culture. So, and I do like the kind of connection to spirit I feel when I'm drawing these pieces. Like I'm speaking for someone, I hope, out there, because I decided to name this series Representation Project because it is meant to empower others and represent somebody out there. This one was is kind of meant to represent like your spirit guide or being lifted up by someone who is watching over you. They can take any form. I've always loved lions, so made it a lion. But it could also be Aslan from Narnia.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, so all the figures that I've drawn in these series are either black or mixed race.
Yeah.
And this character here has obviously got vitiligo, the skin condition.
Yeah.
To show that there is beauty in that also. So a few of these I'd kind of had my eye on, and I knew I wanted to make either prints of them or do something with them. Again, more representation. This one was fun. So yeah, so when Wesi got in touch with me, originally I was supposed to be given a wall, just a wall, like so that I could do a mural, a spray mural. But it was supposed to be in Kirkcaldy originally. So I spoke to her about the brief. It wasn't really supposed to be a tribute to anything in particular, apart from, you know, showing representation and things. And we spoke a bit more, and we kind of both really decided that we should really do something for Sheku Bayo, the man who was killed by police in 2015, and is still, the family still doesn't have justice. So yeah, we were like, yeah, we definitely need to do something, because especially online we were seeing a lot of murals and outrage paintings for George Floyd, and we could have done another George Floyd picture in solidarity, but not only there's nothing wrong with him being the poster boy for this. I know that's a bit maybe controversial to say, but there's more stories closer to home than people think, so we wanted to highlight that. In actual fact, when I think Fife Council found out what we were doing it on, they weren't particularly happy. And I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this, but that's what happened. So they wanted to make it smaller, and they wanted to basically take it down within a week once it was put up, because they didn't want, obviously, the backlash and things like that. So Wesi was like, you know what, we've been offered this massive piece on the side of the Usher Hall. Would you like to go for that instead? I know it's not in Kirkcaldy, it's not where you are, but it doesn't have to be done in person. Like, you can do this digitally, and we can erect it for you. And I was like, yeah, let's just do it. And she was like, it's going to be so much bigger. More people are going to see it. It's in the capital, and I think for this message, I think it was meant. So I'm glad that ended up happening that way. And yeah, ever since then, things have like taken off. Everybody's been wanting to speak to me about my work, and they're wanting to hear what I have to say, because that piece must have, it must have come from somewhere in my heart or in Central, where it was a voice that kind of needed to be heard and things needed to be spoken about. It was also featured on the play that they did for him, Lament for Sheku Bayo. So that was emotional for me, but I was just so proud to in any way be a part of that conversation that brought it forward. I just feel so proud, not just of myself, but just to be Black, to be a part of the community. And a lot of people do think it's just on the surface. Like, I'm mixed race. Like, my dad's Black. He's English. He was Jamaican. He comes from Jamaica. My mum is white. But that doesn't make me any less Black to talk about these things. Like, I still feel the pain of racism, and I still feel that there is injustice, and a lot of people choose to turn a blind eye. And I think what doing the artwork through lockdown has taught me that I need to stop silencing myself and silencing my art to please other people, because I'm at a point in my career, luckily now, where I can create art, and if people want to look, they can look at it or they can look away. It's not necessarily to please everybody, it's just to get the art out there, and that's all art needs to be, is just to put it out into the world. So if people want to see it, then that's great. If it changes anything in the world, then it's just a bonus. But I'm very blessed and very lucky to have got the opportunity to do something with my art that's triggered something, some sort of ripple effect. I'm not like over, I don't want to, it's not about me, it's about him. That's what I want to reiterate with this. Like, it wasn't about people wanting to come and talk to me or anything like that. I'm grateful for that, but it's about Sheku. It's all started from him, the outrage, and George Floyd, of course, and all the other black and brown folks all over the world that are killed unjustly by people that think they have the right to take somebody else's life because of the colour of their skin, and the fear and the bigotry and the hatred. So art can change that. If anybody out there can use their art for the better, to better the world, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So that's it on the Usher Hall.
It looked absolutely amazing. Yeah, and it's been really interesting to see how that came out of those other images that you had started with, and which were then featured as well next to that wall.
Yeah, so that's them there. Like, after she decided that was because we've spoken back and forth about what we want to do, and it didn't want to be a literal tribute to him, because I sketched up a portrait, and she was like, I don't think the family want to make it so like that, it's supposed to be a step forward. So I was like, that's fair enough. So went for that, and then she said, well, we've got 4 more poster boards, like on the same kind of street, if you want to just anything, if you want to contribute. So I gave her some of the stuff that I've been working on through the lockdown. So here I am.
Yeah.
I added the text on this one just to kind of bring up the 4 pieces together, because each of them had text on them apart from him.
Right.
So I put that.
So work together.
That's one from the website.
Yeah. Gosh, such a scale. Such a scale. So what?
It's odd seeing my work so big, because I'm so used to seeing them small, the screen size. It's just to see it massive.
I know, that was.
It was quite well, not overwhelming, but it was daunting. Like, it was just it was so grand in scale. Couldn't believe it.
Well, also it's interesting because they work at this larger scale as well. You know, certain things, when they've been first designed at a certain scale, don't necessarily work at a different scale, but these did. So well, we're nearly ready to have a question and answer session, I think, but before that, do you want to just say a little bit about where you would like to see your work going from now? I mean, having this kind of opportunity to work on that scale, as well as, you know, what can you fit around doing your kind of tattoo work, which obviously, as you say, seems to be morning, noon and night some days. So
coming back from lockdown, I'm sure to set aside time to like unwind and recharge, and it's definitely benefited my health and stuff like that. I would love to see my work on a larger scale. Like, if somebody would like to get like a business or even like a residential place would want to give me like a wall to use spray paint or acrylics. I did have pictures lined up to show you, but that's you can see from my work the range of stuff. I'd love to do like a big scale mural. There's a few people that have kind of booked me for January, or I say a couple of people have booked me for January for like a kid's bedroom wall, and also for like a dance studio space. Just one wall each, and they're happy to see me do my stuff. So I would love to do that on a larger scale, just to for the opportunity to brush up on my skills and to learn as well. Like, I'm always yearning for learning.
I think artists like to kind of push what you've done before to something new. Well, listen, Abz, first of all, I'd like to just thank you, because it's You've been incredibly generous in giving us such an insight into your path as an artist, and you know, the ideas, the emotions behind your work. So, and I've learned an awful lot about tattooing, which I'm really intrigued about. So that's been fantastic. So yes, first of all, I'd like to thank you, and then kind of open up. I don't know if there've been any questions, but just if anyone would like to ask, we'll finish the recording now, and we'll see if anyone would like to ask another question.
Well, I want to say thank you for hearing me as well. Like, it's to be asked to do something like this is very, like, it's very touching. So I was honoured to sit with you and do this. So thank you.